He entered the world silently, not with the lusty cries of his littermates, but with a quiet stillness that immediately signaled something was amiss. In the whelping box, nestled amongst the squirming, healthy pups, he was undeniably different. Where his siblings had 4 sturdy legs already paddling instinctively for warmth and milk, he had only 2. His back legs were perfectly formed, but his front limbs were mere buds, tiny, underdeveloped nubs just below his shoulders. He was a small terrier mix puppy, perfectly formed otherwise, with bright, intelligent eyes just beginning to open, but his difference was stark, unignorable. The breeder, an accidental one whose female had gotten loose, looked at the tiny pup with a mixture of shock and dismay. She had little experience and even less inclination to deal with complications. This puppy wouldn't be able to compete for milk effectively, wouldn't walk properly, wouldn't be easily sellable. To her pragmatic, overwhelmed mind, he was flawed, broken before he'd even truly begun. Whispers of culling or letting nature take its course hung heavy in the air. Mercifully, a neighbor intervened, suggesting surrender to the local animal shelter instead. And so, at just a few days old, separated from his mother and siblings, the tiny, 2-legged puppy arrived at the shelter tucked inside a shoebox lined with a towel. His intake form reads simply: male terrier mix, congenital defect, missing front legs. Surrendered by owner. His prognosis, unspoken but understood by the weary staff, was grim. Shelters struggle with healthy, perfectly formed puppies. A special needs neonate requiring intensive, round-the-clock care. His chances were negligible. He was placed in the back, in the quiet ISO room, awaiting the inevitable. But fate, and a tenacious vet tech named Chloe, had other plans. Chloe, tasked with the initial assessment, found herself captivated by the tiny creature. He was so small, so vulnerable, yet as she gently examined him, she felt a surprising strength in his wriggling body, saw a determined spark in his barely open eyes. He wasn't fading, he was fighting. He nuzzled her finger instinctively, seeking nourishment. Chloe couldn't condemn him based solely on his difference. He deserves a chance, she argued passionately with the shelter manager. He's alert, he's strong otherwise. We can bottle feed him. I'll take him home at night if I have to. It was unorthodox, against protocol given their limited resources, but Chloe's determination swayed the manager. The puppy was granted a temporary reprieve, his fate resting heavily on Chloe's tired shoulders. She named him Pip, for his small size but seemingly large spirit. The first few weeks were an exhausting blur of round-the-clock bottle feedings, careful cleaning, and constant worry. Pip had to be held upright to feed, his little body propped carefully. He couldn't crawl like his siblings would have. He could only wriggle and push with his strong back legs, often ending up frustrated on his side. Chloe devised makeshift slings and supportive pillows to help him maintain position. He was utterly dependent, incredibly fragile. Yet, Pip thrived. He gained weight steadily. His eyes opened fully, revealing a sharp intelligence and boundless curiosity. As he grew stronger, his unique method of locomotion began to emerge. He learned to push himself forward using his powerful hind legs, hopping like a tiny kangaroo, his head and chest held high for balance. It was awkward, tiring, and often resulted in tumbles. But he was mobile. He refused to be stationary. Chloe documented his progress on the shelter's social media page, posting short videos of Pip's determined hops, his bright-eyed interactions. She hoped perhaps to find a specialist rescue or a unicorn adopter willing to take on his lifelong needs. Most comments were sympathetic but pitying. Poor little thing, so sad. But then came a message from Sarah and Ben Carter. The Carters weren't actively looking for a dog, especially not a special needs puppy. They were still mourning the loss of their elderly dog months prior. But Sarah stumbled upon Pip's video, saw his determined hops, the sheer life force radiating from him despite his missing limbs, and felt an instant, inexplicable connection. She showed Ben. He watched the tiny pup tumble, push himself upright, and hop forward again, a look of fierce concentration on his little face. "He doesn't know he's different, does he?" Ben murmured, a smile touching his lips. They contacted the shelter, learned about Pip's needs, the likelihood of needing a wheelchair eventually, potential joint issues later in life, the ongoing care. They didn't hesitate. They saw not the disability, but the spirit. Bringing Pip home was joyous, chaotic, and a steep learning curve. Their house needed Pip-proofing in ways they hadn't anticipated. Rugs provided better traction for his hops than slippery hardwood floors. Low obstacles could easily trip him. They learned to anticipate his needs, celebrate his small victories. The first time he hopped up a single step. The first time he managed to carry a small toy in his mouth while maintaining balance. Pip adapted with astonishing resilience. He learned to navigate his world with a combination of determined hops, rests, and clever problem-solving. He used his nose and head to nudge things, his strong back legs to propel him. He was fearless, tackling challenges with a tenacity that belied his size and physical limitations. He quickly learned that falling wasn't failing. It was just a momentary pause before getting up and trying again. His personality blossomed. He was incredibly smart, quickly picking up commands. He was affectionate, showering the Carters with enthusiastic, wobbly licks and snuggles. He was playful, devising his own games of fetch that involved nudging the ball with his nose and then hopping excitedly after it. He didn't seem to perceive himself as disabled. This was simply his normal. Of course, there were challenges. Longer distances were tiring. Rough terrain was difficult. And there was the reaction of others. Walks in the park often drew stares, whispers, and sometimes unwelcome pity or even negativity. "Isn't that cruel to keep him alive?" someone once asked bluntly, unable to see past the missing limbs to the happy, engaged dog hopping beside Sarah. Children, unfiltered, would point and ask loud questions. Sarah and Ben learned to handle these moments with grace, using them as opportunities to educate. "He was born this way," Sarah would explain calmly. "And as you can see, he's perfectly happy and manages wonderfully." Pip, often oblivious, would simply continue his enthusiastic sniffing or attempt to solicit pets from the curious onlookers. His cheerful demeanor the best possible rebuttal to any negativity. As Pip grew, it became clear that hopping, while effective for short distances, put strain on his spine and remaining limbs. The Carters consulted with veterinary specialists and rehabilitation experts. The solution: a custom-fitted canine wheelchair. Getting Pip accustomed to his wheels was another journey. Initially, he was confused, resistant, bucking against the unfamiliar apparatus strapped to his torso. But with patience, positive reinforcement, and the lure of treats and toys, he began to understand. The first time he truly ran in his wheelchair, propelled by his powerful back legs, zooming across the park with his ears flapping in the wind, was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy for everyone involved. The wheels didn't just give him mobility, they gave him freedom, speed, the ability to keep up with other dogs, to explore further, faster. He took to it with gusto, maneuvering his cart with surprising agility. Pip, with his unique appearance and indomitable spirit, became something of a local celebrity. Then gained a wider following as the Carters continued sharing his journey online. People weren't just seeing a disabled dog. They were seeing resilience personified. They saw joy in the face of adversity, adaptation, and an unwavering love for life. His impact became tangible. The Carters started receiving messages from parents of children with disabilities, saying Pip inspired their kids. They heard from people struggling with their own challenges, who found hope in Pip's refusal to give up. They began volunteering, taking Pip to visit children's hospitals and rehabilitation centers. Pip was extraordinary in these settings, seemed to possess an innate sensitivity. He would approach children in wheelchairs or with limb differences gently, resting his head softly on their laps, offering quiet companionship. His presence, his obvious happiness, despite being different, spoke volumes without a single bark. He showed them that different wasn't less, that limitations didn't have to define them. He became an ambassador of hope, a furry, four-legged inspiration. Watching Pip navigate his world, whether hopping determinedly up the porch steps or zooming gleefully in his chair, left people speechless. Not with pity, but with awe. He faced daily challenges that would defeat many, yet he approached each day with enthusiasm, affection, and an unshakable spirit. He reminded everyone he met about the power of perspective, the strength found in adaptation, and the pure joy of simply being alive. Pip's journey wasn't easy. It required immense dedication from Chloe, the Carters, and a team of veterinary professionals. It required patience, resources, and a willingness to see beyond the obvious. But Pip repaid that investment 1,000-fold. He taught his humans and countless others about resilience, acceptance, and the boundless capacity of the heart. He was born different, yes. His body didn't conform to the standard blueprint. But that difference became the catalyst for an extraordinary life, one filled with challenges overcome, barriers broken, and hearts touched. Pip, the tiny puppy nobody wanted, the one deemed broken, became a beacon of inspiration, proving that true perfection lies not in physical conformity, but in the unwavering strength and beauty of the spirit within. His inspiring journey was a powerful testament to the fact that being born different can lead to a life that is not less, but profoundly more.